Greetings and salutations. Hope we're all doing well. Doing a little bit of an extended hangout time this evening. See if we can make progress in game while we're chatting a while away. I think I have a graveyard to tend to, or at least a gravestone this way. I should make another boat. Just in case. Can't see very well. Hello, Cinder. Glad to have you here. Welcome in. I think I'm being greeted directly by something that I do not wish to have coming at me. Oh, yep, nope, it's floating away. Okay, very good. Glad you're here. I'm hoping that you're doing okay. And if you're not okay, I'm hoping that you will be better by the time we've had some wild and wacky stories. Mud. I don't want to step in. And I stepped in it. You're crocheting mushrooms? How splendid! Very lekker. I think it's going to be an interesting night. You should share your mushrooms whenever you wish. I would love to see them. Es muy difícil. Sorry about that. Got back to our lovely grave, and we have all our stuff back. We've avoided most things along the way, and now we have to head back. Eastwards. Headset cord. You miss playing Minecraft. Well, sorry. I think that I am becoming more and more in love with the whole between lands. Just the amount of effort that was put into the mod. And I'm in mud. As I say mod, I'm in mud. Mud, mud, mud. Not a fan of mud. Fan of the mod. Not a fan of the mud. Got him. 250 pounds to repair your laptop. New card reader, USB installation. Yeah, that sounds a whole lot of not fun. I'm sorry. Barely see where I'm going. Also, apparently, Streamlabs and Discord don't care about each other anymore. So when I started up Streamlabs, Discord's sound kept playing, and I was like, "This is not normal." So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That laptop sounds like it's becoming more and more expensive. Milkweed. Once I'm safely indoors, I will delete the death point off the map. I don't want that cluttering up things. Okay. Yeah, I expect the keyboard to be rather crucial, so, yeah. Well, maybe one day, huh? Ooh, I got a shimmer stone. That's pretty awesome. Okay. Block of octine. Back to the world. Of course, I'm doing everything incorrectly, but you know what? Deal with my inventory. So you've come to realize that this is who I am. These are my inventories, and this is how I do it. Okay. Now, I wonder who else is here. Hello, E. Welcome on in. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you could make it. Makes me happy. We'll be starting the story in about 15 minutes. And yes, definitely not a lot of mods in this mod pack. Modular storage being one of them that is not. But we're heading into the caverns with a heart full of hope and a pickaxe full of nope. I have a lot of caution filling my lungs as I start digging around in the lower depths. Hey, buddy! I thought I heard something. Okay. You want to talk about it? You want to talk about it? You're just going to start distorting the air around you. Hey, buddy. Hi. Oh, I know. I know. Oh, you coming to talk to me? Hi, buddy. Hey, let's... You want to... Okay. Okay. Well, how about we... Oh, hey. Hi. Hey, you're doing great. You're doing great. Okay. So the sad story about the white, as it is called, is it's I guess you could say it's kind of like the Enderman in a way, where it was once a noble creature, and time and exposure to the dark elements caused it to become what it is now. And what it's actually saying is it's asking the question, why? It wants to know why it has become the way that it is. Otherwise, it just kind of, you know, moans and cries and gets along with its day. But as long as you're crouching, they don't do anything. The moment you stand up and start walking around, well, I know, it is kind of sad. But yeah, that's the white. Ooh, what's this? Is this a little treasure trove? Oh, yes, please. Count me in. Let's see. That looks like it's going to need some of that. Oh, I did not bring any wood. Oh, okay. All right, we'll go back after we're done here. Okay, we found ourselves a little treasure trove. Okay. Oh, you didn't, Cinder? Yeah, it's kind of a sad story. Let's set this to 2. Come on, buddy. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. How's our inventory doing? We're doing fine on the inventory. Good amount of treasure. Nope, come on. I wish they were easier targets, man. I wish they were easier targets. Ooh, that's not a bad loot. Okay, well, now that we're hearing the groans of a giant beast in the abyss, we're gonna head home. Okay. So, y'all should tell me about your days. Tell me things and let me absorb the energy that you have acquired through the day. Couldn't pay you to play on a server with the scary mods. Well, That's why I play for you. And then, one day when I set up a donation stand, that maybe you could pay me to play it. Continue reading stories. I don't know. Skip coffee for a day. Bring me your dollars. Go pass on sharing. Fair enough. That's fine. You know what? That's a type of sharing, and that I'm okay with that. Thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate it. Let's see. I got bone wayfinders, 2 of those. Shock arrows. The sky is opening up. Nice. We got to witness the skies opening. Now we're gonna really mess with the inventory again. We got Spectre seeds fused with mist, and we're gonna make ourselves some more torches. And we have 9 minutes until story time. I'm excited. No matter how difficult it is to start sometimes, I really get excited when I'm actually doing it, and I have to remind myself that. Just, you know, being a human is hard sometimes. It really is. Or can be. Oh, let's see. We want these, though. Yeah, what else we got? I messed with the audio settings again, so please tell me if things are out of place or whatever. I am headed into the cavern for a second time with 8 minutes on the clock. Hope you like that song. So we'll pass on sharing. Wonder what... Well, first thing I wonder is where's the book? I put the book somewhere, if you'll excuse me. You can still hear me rummaging around. Let's fix that too. We got it. We found it. We're safe. We got, next story is Bearskin. That's exciting. Looking forward to reading Bearskin. And not like skin that is exposed, like skin of a bear. In case anyone was, you know, wondering. Oh, good. I'm so excited. Like, I'm so excited when people have heard the stories before, especially like Brothers Grimm, because it's like, I don't know what it is. It just makes me happy. Ooh, I wonder what's up there. 6 minutes and counting. Nothing is up here. Oh, wait, nope. I'm wrong. I sit corrected. Sounds bad. Where are they? Oh, hey, there they are. Alright. Come on, guys, you don't scare me. I'm not frightened of you. You're not gonna get me. Oh. Oh my gosh, they're so fun. Golly gosh. Don't you just love it when bugs crawl all over your face? It's just the best feeling in the world. There's a reason I carry 2 buckets of water with me, so that I can drown myself, and so that the bugs can't crawl all over my face because they don't like water. You were telling your mom earlier about how last time I read a story that you remembered. Happy noises. You should have her listen to. Say, hey, that one story guy is doing stories. Make it a family adventure. Even though the stories are not family friendly, I'll say that much. Okay, this is a bit of a drop here. My torch placement has not failed me yet. Plan on... Oh, we got 4 minutes to get to the surface. Yes, Cinder. I would love... I would be so happy if everyone listened to my stories, to be honest, so... Bring the kiddo along. Or, you know, listen to story time of one of the recorded stories so that it doesn't have to be dependent on what time of night it is. As it is what, 1 a.m. for you now? 2 a.m. for you? Yeah. Yeah. Bones. I hear a swamp hag. So I'm just gonna run on home. I'm not good at parkour, trust me. 1 a.m. Oh, okay. I was right the first time. Okay. That is severely exciting. Let's go found ourselves a nice place to park. Excuse me for going off camera to blow my nose. Why my computer be making noises, huh? Okay. Where should we go for tonight's story time? We have about 30 seconds. We've been in the swamps, we've been in the... Oh. Been in the Crag Rock Lakes. We've seen this little dude. He's so adorable. Like, doesn't that just make you happy? He's like hanging out, doing his little lag dance. And he's humming the song they play on the violin. That's adorable. Oh, there's a Crag Rock Tower. We'll leave that alone. Why don't we take this lovely view? Get ready for story time. Philip Pullman's Fairy Tales from the Brothers Grimm. That little sprite was adorable. Chapter 36, Bearskin. I'm gonna turn my phone over because it keeps on lighting up with texts. I'm so popular. And we're gonna go ahead and begin. Bearskin. Once there was a young fellow who enlisted as a soldier, fought bravely, and was always at the front when red-hot bullets were raining down. As long as the war lasted, everything went well, but when peace was signed, he was discharged. The captain said he could go wherever he liked. His parents were dead, and he no longer had a home, so he went to his brothers and asked if he could live with them until there was another war. His brothers, however, were hard-hearted and said, "What have your problems got to do with us? We don't need you here. Clear off and shift for yourself." All the soldier had left was his musket, so he put it on his shoulder and went out into the world. Soon he came to a great heath, where there was nothing to be seen but a circle of trees. He sat under them thinking about his fate, and feeling pretty sorry for himself. "I've got no money and no prospects," he thought. "All I can do is make war, but if all they want is peace, I'm useless. I'll probably starve to death." Suddenly he heard a rustling, and when he looked round to see what it was, he saw a strange man standing there. He wore a smart green jacket, and looked perfectly respectable, except for the hideous great horse's foot he had at the end of one leg. "I know what you want," he said to the soldier, "and you can have all of it, as much gold and property as you like. But first, you must show me how brave you are. I'm not going to give my money to someone who runs away at the first sign of danger." "Well, I'm a soldier, and it's my profession to be afraid of nothing, and you can test me if you like." "All right," said the man, "look behind you." The soldier turned around and saw a huge bear running towards him, growling furiously. "Oh," said the soldier, "I'll tickle your snout for you, you ugly brute. See how you feel like growling after this." He leveled his musket at the bear and fired a shot. It hit the bear in the muzzle, and it fell down at once. "I can see you don't lack for courage," said the stranger, "but I haven't finished yet. There's one more condition." "As long as it doesn't spoil my chances of going to heaven," said the soldier, who knew quite well who the stranger was. "If that's at risk, I'll have nothing to do with it." "Well, we'll see about that," said the stranger. "Here's what you've got to do. For the next 7 years, you mustn't wash yourself, or comb your hair, or cut your nails, or say the Lord's Prayer. I'll give you a jacket and a cloak to wear all that time. Now, if you die during those 7 years, you're mine. Understand? If you stay alive, you're free, and rich as well, don't forget, for the rest of your life." I like the part where it says don't cut your nails, because I'd be like, I'm going to go get a file. I'm just going to keep on filing my nails down. The soldier thought about it. He'd faced death so often on the battlefield that he was used to danger, but poverty was another matter. He decided to take up the devil's offer. The devil took off his green jacket and handed it to the soldier, saying, "If you put your hand in the pocket when you've got this jacket on, you'll always find a handful of money." Then the devil skinned the bear and said, "You must use this bearskin as your cloak, and you must sleep in it too, and you mustn't lie in any other bed, and you must go by the name of Bearskin." Boy, I'm loving this background. I wasn't really expecting it to get all misty. It's foggy. With those words, the devil disappeared. The soldier put the jacket on and reached into the pocket and found that the devil had been telling the truth. He put the bearskin on like a cloak and started his wanderings. He went wherever he liked, did whatever he pleased, and spent as much as he found in his pocket. For the first year he looked all right, but during the second he began to look like a monster. His face was almost entirely covered with his long, coarse beard, his hair was matted and tangled, his fingers ended in claws, and he was so dirty that if you sowed cress on his face, it would have sprouted. Everyone who saw him shuddered or ran away. However, he always gave money to the poor to pray that he'd stay alive for 7 years. And because he always paid in full and at once for everything he wanted, he could always find shelter. In his 4th year of wandering, he arrived at an inn. The landlord wouldn't let him in, and even refused him a place in the stable in case he frightened the horses. But when Bearskin put his hand in his pocket and pulled out a handful of cash, the landlord relented a little and let him stay in a lean-to in the yard, on condition that he didn't show his face to anyone. One night he was sitting alone in there, heartily wishing that his 7 years were up, and when he heard someone sobbing with misery in a nearby room. Bearskin was a kind-hearted man and wanted to help. He opened the door and saw an old man weeping bitterly and striking his fists together. As soon as the old man saw Bearskin, he struggled up and tried to run away, but on hearing a human voice, he stopped and let the monster talk to him. Bearskin spoke kindly and got the old fellow to sit down again and tell him his troubles. It seemed that little by little he'd lost what money he had, and now he and his daughters were on the brink of starvation. He couldn't pay his bill to the landlord, and he was sure to be sent to prison. "If money's your only problem," said Bearskin, "I've got enough to help you." He called for the landlord and paid the bill, and then he put a bag of gold into the old man's pocket. When the old man saw that all his troubles were over, he didn't know how to thank his strange helper. "Come with me," he said. "Come and meet my daughters. They're all wonderfully beautiful, and you must choose one of them to be your wife. When they hear what you've done for me, they won't refuse you. You do look a bit, well, eccentric. But whichever one you choose will soon have you looking neat and tidy." Uh-oh. Bearskin liked the sound of the daughters, so he went home with the old man. However, when the eldest daughter saw him, she screamed and ran away. The second daughter looked him up and down and said, "You expect me to marry a thing like that? He doesn't even look like a man. I'd sooner marry that bear who came here once. You remember, they'd shaved all his fur off and he was wearing a hussar's uniform and white gloves. I could have got used to him." The youngest daughter, however, said, "Father dear, he must be a good man if he helped you like that. And if you promised him a bride, I'm ready to keep your word." It was a shame that Bearskin's face was covered in hair and dirt, because otherwise father and daughter would have seen how joyfully his heart leapt at those words. He took a ring from his finger, broke it in two, and gave her one half, keeping the other for himself. He wrote her name in his half and his name in hers, and asked her to take good care of it. "I've got to be off now," he said. "I've got 3 more years wandering to get through. If I don't come back after then, you're free, because I shall be dead. But I hope you'll pray to God and ask him to keep me alive." The poor bride dressed herself in all black, and when she thought about her future bridegroom, tears came to her eyes. From her sisters all she had for the next 3 years was scorn and ridicule. "Better be careful," said the elder sister. "If you give him your hand, he'll crush it in his paw." "Watch out," said the second sister. "Bears like sweet things. If he takes a fancy to you, you'll be down his gullet in a moment. And you better do as he tells you. I wouldn't care to be you if he starts to growl." "But the wedding will be fun. Bears always dance well." The bride-to-be said nothing and didn't let them upset her. As for Bearskin, he wandered all over the world, doing good wherever he could and giving generously to the poor so that they'd pray for him. Finally, at dawn, on the very last day of the 7 years, he went once more to the heath and sat down under the circle of trees. Quite soon the wind began to howl, and there was the devil again, scowling at him. "Here's your jacket," he said, throwing Bearskin's old jacket to him. "Now give me back my green one." "Not so fast," said Bearskin. "First of all, you're going to clean me up. I want 4 tubs of water, from very hot to lukewarm, and 4 kinds of soap, from that yellow stuff they scrub the floors with to the finest Parisian savon de luxe. As for the shampoo, I want several kinds of that, from the sort they use on horses to the most delicate stuff scented with lavender. Then I want a gallon of eau de cologne. And whether the devil wanted to or not, he had to bring water and soap and several kinds of cosmetic product and wash Bearskin from head to foot, cut his hair, comb it neatly, shave his beard, and trim his nails. After that, Bearskin looked like a dashing soldier once more. In fact, he looked more handsome than ever. When the devil had vanished, complaining bitterly, Bearskin felt joyful. He strode into the town, bought a splendid velvet jacket, hired a carriage drawn by 4 white horses, and drove to the house of his bride. Of course, no one recognized him. The father assumed he was a distinguished officer, a colonel at least, and led him into the dining room where his daughters were sitting. He took a seat between the 2 eldest. They made a real fuss of him. They poured wine for him. They chose the finest morsels to put on his plate. They flirted and simpered. Simp. I love it. I love it. I'm just so happy. And thought they'd never seen a more handsome man. But the youngest daughter sat across the table from him, not raising her eyes, not saying a word. Finally, Bearskin asked the father if he'd let him choose one of the daughters for a wife. At that, the 2 eldest daughters leapt up from the table and raced to their bedrooms to put on their finest dresses. Each one thought she was the one Bearskin wanted. As soon as he was alone with his bride-to-be, the visitor brought out his half of the broken ring and dropped it into the glass of wine, which he handed to her across the table. She took the wine and drank it, and when she found the half-ring in the bottom of the glass, her heart beat faster. And she took the other half, which she wore on a ribbon around her neck, and put them together, and the 2 halves matched perfectly. The stranger said, "I'm your bridegroom, whom you knew as Bearskin. By the grace of God, I found my clean human form again." He embraced her and kissed her warmly, and at that moment the 2 sisters came in wearing all their finery, and when they saw Bearskin and their sister together, and realized who he was and what had happened, they went mad with fury. They ran outside, and one of them drowned herself in the well, and the other hanged herself from a tree. That evening there was a knock at the door. Bearskin opened it, and there was the devil in his green jacket. "What do you want?" said Bearskin. "I've just come to thank you. I've now got 2 souls to play with instead of your 1. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that last bit. I was like, everything's fine, then all of a sudden it's like, hey, thanks, by the way. Thanks for doubling my profits of human souls. Oh. Imagine being responsible for something like that. Okay. We're going to read one more story. It's a bit of a long one, so if I have to take a break, or if I don't get it all, if I don't make it all the way through tonight, then bear with me. We'll pick up later on. This is chapter 37, and the title is The 2 Traveling Companions. And we're going to dive right on in. The mountain and the valley never meet. But the children of men, both good and bad, meet one another all the time. So it was that a shoemaker and a tailor once met up on their travels. The tailor was a good-looking little fellow, always cheerful and full of merriment. He saw the shoemaker coming towards him on the other side of the road, and, seeing from the shape of his knapsack and what trade he followed, began to sing a teasing little song. Sew the seam and pull the thread, whack the nail right on the head. But the shoemaker wasn't the type to take a joke. He scowled and shook his fist. The tailor laughed and handed over his bottle of schnapps. "Here, take a swig of this," he said. "No harm intended. Have a drink and swallow your anger. The shoemaker knocked back half the bottle, and the storm in his eyes began to clear. He gave the bottle back and said, "Nice drop. They go on about heavy drinking, but they don't say much about great thirst. Shall we travel together for a while?" "Suits me," said the tailor, "as long as you don't mind making for the big towns, where there's plenty of work." "Just what I had in mind. There's nothing to be earned in these small towns, and the country people prefer to go barefoot anyway." So they went together, putting one foot in front of the other like weasels in the snow. They had plenty of time, but little to eat. Whenever they reached a town they looked for work, and because the tailor was an engaging little fellow with rosy red cheeks, he found work easily enough, and if he was lucky he got a kiss from the master's daughter when he left to wish him good cheer on the way. But the tailor only laughed and sang all the more, and shared what he had with his companion. Whenever he had a couple of coins in his pocket, he'd order something good to eat and thump the table till the glasses danced. Easy come, easy go was his principle. After they'd been traveling for some time, they came to a great forest. There were 2 paths that led through it to the capital, but one of them took 2 days walking, and the other took 7, and they didn't know which was which. They sat down beneath an oak tree and talked about it. Should they carry 7 days' food or only 2? "Always prepare for the worst," said the shoemaker. "I'm going to carry enough bread for a week." "What?" said the tailor. "Lug all that bread about like a beast of burden and not be able to enjoy the scenery? Not me. I shall trust in God as I always do. My money's as good in summer as in winter, but bread isn't. In the hot weather it dries out and goes moldy all the quicker. Why shouldn't we find the right way? A 1 in 2 chance is pretty good, when you think about it. No, I'll take bread for 2 days. That's quite enough." So they each bought the bread they wanted to carry and set off into the forest. It was as quiet as a church under the trees. There was no breeze, no murmuring brook, no bird song, and not a single sunbeam found its way through the dense leaves. The shoemaker didn't say a word. He just trudged on with the bread weighing heavier and heavier on his back, and the sweat streaming down his sour and gloomy face. The tailor, however, couldn't have been happier. He laughed and sang and walked ahead with a spring in his step, whistling on a blade of grass. He thought, "God up there must be pleased to see me so happy." And so they went on for 2 days. And on the 3rd day, however, they were still deep in the forest, and the tailor had eaten all his bread. He was a bit less cheerful now, but he didn't lose his courage. He relied on God and on his luck. On the evening of the 3rd day he lay down hungry, and rose even hungrier the following morning. The 4th day passed in the same way, and in the evening the tailor had to sit and watch as the shoemaker made a fine meal out of his supplies. The tailor asked for a slice of bread, and the shoemaker just laughed at him, saying, "You were always too fond of singing and playing the fool. Now you can see where that gets you. Birds that sing too early in the morning get caught by the hawk before nightfall." In fact, he was merciless. On the 5th morning the poor tailor could hardly stand up, and his voice was just a croak. All the red in his cheeks had gone. They were as white as chalk now, and it was his eyes that were red. And then the shoemaker said, "Well, you're in trouble, and it was all of your own making. I tell you what, I'll give you a piece of bread, but in return I'll put out your right eye." The poor tailor had to live, so he had to agree. He wept with both eyes while he still had them, and then held up his head so the stony-hearted shoemaker could put out his right eye with the bread knife. The tailor remembered what his mother had said when she found him gobbling up a pie in the pantry. "Eat all you can, and suffer what you must." He ate the thin slice of bread the shoemaker gave him, and felt a little better, and was able to stand up, and he walked on, thinking that he could still see well enough with his left eye after all. But on the 6th day the hunger had him in its grip again, and even more fiercely than before. That evening he simply fell down and lay where he fell, and on the 7th morning he was too weak to get up at all. His death was not far away. Something's not right. raining with no rain sounds. There we go. The shoemaker said, "I'll be merciful. I can see that you're the state you're in, and I'll give you another slice of bread, but you're not getting it for nothing. You've got one eye left, and I'll have that one like the first." The poor tailor felt as if he'd wasted all his life. What had he done wrong, that he should come to this? He must have offended God in some way, so he prayed for forgiveness and said to the shoemaker, "Go on then. Put it out. But remember, God sees everything you do, and the time will come when he'll punish you for this evil deed. When times were good, didn't I share what I had with you? One stitch follows another, and I used to see them clear and easy. But if I haven't got my eyes and I can't sew any more, I'll have to go begging. At least don't leave me here alone when I'm blind, or I'll die of hunger." The shoemaker cared nothing for this talk of God. He'd driven God out of his heart a long time ago. He took his knife and put out the tailor's other eye, and then gave him a small piece of bread, held out on his stick for the tailor to hold on to, and led him along. At sunset they came out of the forest. The tailor could feel the warmth of the sun on his face, but of course he couldn't see a thing, and he didn't realize that the shoemaker was leading him towards a gallows that stood at the edge of a field. The shoemaker left him there alone and walked on. The poor tailor, overcome from weariness, pain, and hunger, simply fell down where he was and fell asleep. He woke up at dawn, shivering with cold. There were 2 poor sinners hanging at the gallows above him, with a crow sitting on the head of each one. One of the hanged men spoke to the other, saying, "Brother, are you awake?" "Yes, I'm awake," said the second. "Well, I'll tell you something worth knowing. The dew that settles on us at night and drips off onto the grass below has a special property. If a blind person washes their eyes in it, they get their sight back. If the blind knew that, how many do you think there'd be crowding around our gallows every morning?" The tailor could hardly believe his ears, but he took his handkerchief, pressed it down on the grass till it was as wet as it could be, and washed his eye sockets. Immediately what the hanged man had said came true. A healthy new eye grew at once and filled each socket. The sun was about to rise, and the tailor watched with wonder as the light came over the mountains and filled the whole valley and plain in front of him. There lay a great city with magnificent gates and 100 towers, and the sun caught the golden balls and crosses on the tops of the church spires and made them sparkle in the clear morning. He could see every leaf on the trees, every bird flying past, and even every gnat that danced in the air. But here was the greatest test. He took a needle from his needle case, snapped off a bit of thread, and threaded it as quickly and easily as he'd ever done. His heart leapt for joy. He threw himself to his knees and thanked God for his mercy. Then he said his morning prayer, and he didn't forget to pray for the 2 poor sinners who were swinging on the breeze like pendulums. The tailor hoisted his bundle onto his back and went on his way, singing and whistling as if he'd never endured any sorrow at all. The first thing he came to was a fine brown foal, running wherever it pleased in the meadow. The tailor caught hold of its mane and tried to mount it and ride it into town, but the foal begged for his freedom, saying, "Look, I'm only young, and even a skinny little tailor like you is too much for me. You'd snap my spine in half if you tried to ride me. Let me grow bigger and stronger, and perhaps I'll be able to repay you one day." "Oh, go on then, off you go," said the tailor. "I can see you're a frisky devil like me." He gave the foal a pat on the rump, and the young creature kicked his heels for joy and galloped away, leaping hedges and ditches and galloping off into the distance. The little tailor hadn't eaten anything since the meager lump of bread the shoemaker had given him the day before. "The sunlight fills my eyes," he said, "but I've got nothing to fill my belly with. The next thing I see that's even half edible— Ah! What's that?" It was a stork, and it stepped daintily over the meadow towards him. The tailor leapt on it at once and seized it by one leg. I don't know what you'll taste like, he said, but I'm going to find out. Now stand still while I cut your head off, and then I'll roast you. No, please don't do that, said the stork. It really isn't a good idea. You see, I'm sacred. I'm a friend to everyone, and no one harms me. If you spare my life, I'll certainly be able to do you some good in a different way. Oh, off you go then, Longlegs, said the tailor, and let go. The great bird rose gracefully up on his long wings, letting his legs hang down, and flew away. Where's this all going to end? Said the tailor to himself. My hunger gets bigger and bigger, and my belly emptier and emptier. Well, whatever I see next is doomed. At that moment he was passing a pond where a couple of young ducks were taking their morning swim. One of them came a bit too close, and the tailor seized it at once. Just in time, he said, and he was about to wring its neck when there was a terrible squawking from across the pond, and an old mother duck flapped out from under the reeds and half swam, half flew towards him. Spare my child, she cried. Can you imagine how your own poor mother would feel if someone wanted to eat you? Oh, calm down, said the good-natured tailor. You can keep your child. And he set the duckling back on the water. When he turned away, ready to set off again, he found he was standing in front of an old hollow tree where dozens of wild bees were flying in and out. Honey, he thought at once. Thank goodness. That's my reward for sparing the duckling. But he'd hardly moved a step towards the tree when the queen bee came flying out. If you touch my people and destroy our nest, she said, you'll be sorry for it. You'll feel 10,000 red-hot needles piercing your skin. But leave us alone and go on your way, and one day we'll do you a favor in return. The tailor couldn't win that one. 3 empty dishes and nothing in the fourth, he said to himself. Makes a miserable dinner. We need to quote that one. 3 empty dishes and nothing in the fourth makes a miserable dinner. So he dragged himself and his ravening stomach into the town, and since all the clocks were striking 12, there was food already cooked in the first inn he came to. He sat down and devoured an enormous meal. When he was finally satisfied, he said to himself, well, it's time to find some work. He set off around the town to find a tailor's shop, and soon found himself a job. He was a master of his trade, so it wasn't long before he was well known, and every fashionable person was eager to have a new coat or jacket made by the little tailor, and day by day his reputation grew. I can't get any cleverer, he said, so all I can do is get more successful. The summit of his success came when the king appointed him tailor royal to the court. But strange things happened in this world. On the very same day of his royal appointment, his former companion the shoemaker was appointed cobbler royal. When the shoemaker caught sight of the tailor and saw that he had 2 healthy eyes, he was astonished and alarmed, and his conscience pricked him. Before he takes revenge on me, he thought, I'll dig a pit for him. But whoever digs a pit for someone else falls into it himself. One evening, when it was getting dark, the shoemaker went to the king and said humbly, Your Majesty, I don't like to speak ill of anyone, but that tailor fellow has been saying that he can find the golden crown that was lost all that time ago. Oh, he has he? Said the king. Next morning he had the tailor summoned. I hear you've been boasting you can find my golden crown, he said. Well, you'd better make good about your boast, or leave the city and not come back. Oh, thought the tailor, I can see the way the wind's blowing. There's no point in hanging about if he wants me to do the impossible. I'll go straight away. He tied up his bundle and made his way to the city gate. Once he was outside, however, he couldn't help regretting the need to leave the city where he'd been doing so well. He was walking along thinking about it when he came to the pond where he'd made the acquaintance of the ducks. At that moment, the old mother duck whose young he once spared was sitting on the grass preening herself, and she recognized him at once. Morning, she said. What's the trouble? Why are you down in the dumps? Oh, duck, he said, you won't be surprised once I tell you all about it. And he told the duck everything that had happened. Well, if that's all, said the duck, you can forget your troubles. The crown is down below at the bottom of the pond. We'll bring it up for you. Spread your handkerchief out on the grass and enjoy the sunshine. She called her 12 children, and they all dived down and vanished. A couple of minutes later they came up with the crown balanced on her wings. "Careful now," she said to the ducklings. "Some of you this side, some of you that." They all swam round her, supporting the heavy crown with their beaks. And in less than a minute the crown was resting on the tailor's handkerchief. What a magnificent sight! The sun sparkled on the gold so it shone like 100,000 carbuncles. The tailor thanked the ducks, tied the 4 corners of his handkerchief together, and carried the crown to the king. The king was so delighted that he hung a gold chain around the tailor's neck. When the shoemaker saw that his first plan had failed, he thought of another. He went to the king and said, "Your Majesty, I'm sorry to say the tailor's been boasting again. His latest claim is that he can make a wax model of the royal palace, every room and every detail, furniture and all, inside and out." The king sent for the tailor and ordered him to make a model like that, every detail, furniture and all. "And if you fail to include so much as a single nail on a wall, I'll have you imprisoned underground for the rest of your life," said the king. The tailor thought, "This gets worse and worse. Who could put up with this sort of thing?" He slung his knapsack over his back and set off again. He got as far as the hollow tree and was so depressed that he just slumped down and hung his head. The bees flying in and out must have told the queen he was there, because very soon she came out and sat on a twig beside him. "Got a stiff neck?" she said. "Oh, hello. No, I'm just hanging my head in despair." And he told her what the king had ordered him to do. The queen bee flew up and had a buzzing conversation with several others, and then she came back down again. "Just go back to the city now," she said, "but come back here tomorrow and bring a large cloth with you. Don't worry, it'll all come right in the end." So he turned back and kept out of the way. Meanwhile, the bees flew to the palace and in through the windows and buzzed around looking at every single detail. Then they all flew out again and went back to their hive, where they started modeling the palace in wax. They worked so quickly that anyone watching would have sworn it was just growing by itself. By the evening it was all ready. When the tailor came back the next morning, he could hardly believe what he saw. The whole building was there, from the tiles on the roof to the cobbles in the courtyard, and not one single detail was missing, not even a single nail on a wall. What's more, it was as white and delicate as a snowflake, and it smelled like honey. "Oh, bees, I don't know how to thank you," said the tailor. He placed it in the large cloth, wrapped it as carefully as he possibly could, and carried it all the way to the throne room, taking the greatest care in the world not to drop it or fall over. He got there safely and unfolded the cloth and showed it to the king, who walked all around, staring in at the windows, peering at the sentry boxes, admiring the details of the ironwork on the balconies. He couldn't admire it enough. He had it set up in the largest hall and rewarded the tailor with a handsome stone house. The shoemaker was beaten once more, but he didn't give up. He went to the king and said, "I'm truly sorry to tell you this, your majesty, but that tailor's been boasting again. He's heard that there's no water under the castle courtyard, but he says that's nothing to a man like him. If he wanted to, he could cause a fountain to spring up there as tall as a man, flowing with crystal clear water." The king sent for the tailor. Seems terribly reasonable. "I've heard this claim of yours about making a fountain spring up in the courtyard. If you don't do it, I shall look like a fool, and I won't have that. So you put a fountain of crystal clear water there as you've promised, or else there'll be a fountain of your blood when the executioner royal cuts your head off." The poor tailor hurried out of the city gate as fast as he could. This time his life was at stake, and he couldn't stop the tears rolling down his face. He wandered out into the country with no idea how he could possibly fulfill this latest command. As he passed a wide green meadow, the foal he'd given his liberty to some time before came galloping up. He had now become a beautiful chestnut horse. "The time has come," he said to the tailor, "for me to repay your kindness. No need to tell me what you want. I know already, and I can make it happen. Just climb on my back. I'm strong enough now to take a brace of tailors." The tailor's courage came back all at once. With one bound he leapt on the horse's back and clung on to his mane as the horse galloped at full speed towards the city. Pedestrians scattered as he charged through the gate and made straight for the castle. Ignoring the sentries, they galloped right up the steps and into the courtyard, where the horse raced round and round, faster and faster, the tailor clinging on with all his might. And then, crash! The horse fell down right in the middle. At that same moment there was an almighty clap of thunder, a great clump of earth and cobblestones flew straight up into the air and way over the castle roof, and then a spring of water shot into the air as high as a man on horseback. The water was so clear that the sunbeams sparkled on it, making rainbows. The king was standing in the doorway watching in amazement. As the horse got to his feet again, and the tailor staggered up, shaking and trembling, the king ran to him and embraced him in the sight of all the court. So the tailor was in the king's good books again, but it didn't last long. This time the wicked shoemaker took a calculating look at the royal family. The king had plenty of daughters, each one more beautiful than all the others, but no son. And it was known that his majesty was eager for a prince to succeed him on the throne. The shoemaker went to him and said, "Your Majesty, I'm afraid you won't like what I'm going to tell you now, but it can't be hidden. That insolent tailor has boasted that if he wanted to, he could have a son brought to your Majesty through the air." That was too much for the king. He summoned the tailor again. "I hear you've been making claims about the succession. I hear that you've said you could bring me a son. Well, you've got 9 days. Bring me a son in that time, and you can marry the eldest princess." The tailor thought, she'd be a prize worth winning. I'd do a lot to marry her, but those cherries are growing too high for me. If I tried to climb that high, the branch would break. What am I going to do now? He went on to his workshop, sat himself cross-legged on the bench, and wondered what on earth he could do. Finally, he gave up. "It's no good," he cried. "It can't be done, and I'm going to have to go away for good this time. I can't live here in peace." He tied up his bundle and set off once again. When he got to the meadow, he saw his friend the stork walking slowly up and down, looking just like a philosopher. Every so often he'd stop, look closely at a frog, then pick it up and swallow it. Seeing the tailor, the stork strolled over to greet him. "I see you're carrying your possession with you." "I see you're carrying your possessions with you. Are you leaving the city then?" The stork! The tailor told him what the trouble was. "He keeps asking me to do these impossible things, and with the help of some good friends I've managed the other tasks, but this one's completely beyond me," he said. "Well, don't let it turn your hair gray," said the stork. "We storks have a certain expertise in this field of kidnapping babies. It won't take me long to fish a little prince out of the well where they grow." "Go home, my dear tailor, and put your feet up. 9 days, was it? Go to the palace in 9 days' time, and I'll meet you there." The little tailor went home feeling much more cheerful, and on the appointed day he went to the palace. Just as he arrived, there was a tapping at the window, and there was the stork. I'm learning these things, Cinder. Princes out of wells and princesses out of gooseberry bushes. The tailor opened the window, and the stork came in, carrying a bundle in his beak. He walked very carefully over the smooth marble floor, and laid the bundle in the lap of the queen, who opened it to find the most beautiful baby boy reaching up his arms for her. She picked him up and caressed him and kissed him, transported with delight. Before he flew away, the stork took another bundle off his back and handed it to the king. In it there were combs, mirrors, ribbons, and whatnot, presents for all the princesses except the eldest, because her present was the tailor for a husband. "It seems to me that I've got the best prize of the lot," said the tailor. "My old mother was right after all. She always used to say that whoever trusts in God can't fail, as long as his luck holds, that is." The shoemaker had to make the shoes in which the tailor danced at his wedding. After that, though, he was ordered to leave the city forever. He left in a foul mood and slouched along the road towards the forest which led him past the gallows. By that time he was worn out, tired, hot, angry, and bitter, and he threw himself down and was about to fall asleep when the two crows who'd been sitting on the heads of the hanged men flew down and pecked his eyes out. At that point he went mad, and he ran off into the forest where he must have died of hunger, for he was never seen again. The end. Oh my goodness. The end. Hello, Megan. You came at just the time at which I'm ending. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Oh dear. The end. Hello, Pikachu. Yeah, that old conniving filthmonger got his eyes pecked out for sure. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. That's wild. Oh my goodness. Wow. That's crazy. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the end of story time. I'm so happy that you were here. That's okay. Maybe another time. I know that our streams kind of overlap, it seems, and by the time I'm starting, y'all are already hanging out and doing the thing. But I'm really sorry. I've outspoken myself. I'm pretty sleepy, so I'm probably going to be heading out. But thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. E and Cinder and Megan and Pikachu. And we'll have more story times later on. I don't know about tomorrow. It really depends on the tar box in the head. But I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I will be heading out, and I'll talk to you all later. I hope the night goes well for you all. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.